Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. In this video, I want to share a deck with you that is on Kickstarter right now. And that deck is the Marseille Prendre Vie, or Marseille Coming Alive, created by Krista Flute of Aunty K's Tarot. And so I want to go kind of tabletop view to just walk through the cards. But before I get to that, I wanted to talk a little bit just about the copy of the deck that I have here, the Kickstarter campaign, and the guidebook. So before I get to showing the cards, I did just want to mention that this is a proof copy of the deck that does not look exactly like what the final product will look like. There are a couple of issues in here, like mixed up Roman numerals or the color not going quite to the edge of the card that have been corrected and won't be in the final product. So when you see those, just be aware that those things are being changed. Second round or third round of proofs have now been ordered, so that's all in the process. I'm going to link the Kickstarter campaign below. You'll see on the Kickstarter campaign that it's really just about the deck, right? There is the tarot deck as an option of an item to back. There's a mini copy of the deck, which comes, I believe, just in like plastic wrap, not in a tuck box. And there's the option to order kind of one of each size or a couple of decks, but really that's it. And the reason for that, I think, or one of the reasons for that, is that the way that this campaign is going to work is with the printing company shipping the decks directly to the backers, as opposed to shipping to the creator and then the creator mailing everything out to backers, right? So there's definite kind of pros to this approach in terms of just like logistics, cutting out, one step where issues could happen, and also eco-friendliness, less shipping overall. The drawback of this is that the printing company has limits on what countries that it will ship to, so you can only back the campaign with shipping addresses from certain countries, and you're not going to see a whole bunch of fancy add-ons and things like that because this is a card printing company. So that is what you'll see on the Kickstarter, which is again live right now. The guidebook for this deck is a digital guidebook. So with the deck you get this card which has a QR code on it and explains on the card that it will take you to the guidebook, and it's a PDF guidebook for the deck. And there's going to be both the PDF and then also a audio version. So, accessibility wise, there's a couple of options there. You can actually go now to Aunty K's website if you just Google it and see a kind of uncorrected work in progress version of the guidebook as it's being developed. And so something cool that you'll see about the guidebook is that it's written in a kind of short story, almost like a bit of a guided meditation, but a kind of journey format. The cards are not in the order that you would expect, but it's written to kind of take you from card to card as though you're meeting kind of the figures in the card or seeing the scenes in the card. And the guidebook, what I like about the guidebook is that it has a little bit of, it reminds me a little bit in tone of something like the Tarot of the Silicon Dawn guidebook, and like what I really like about that guidebook. It's a little bit, there's a sense of humor. And it's substantial, but there's a sense of humor. And I do like that kind of, approachable tone. It is not a guidebook that is going to teach you how to read Marseille. There are obviously books published, several of them at this point, that focus on Tarot de Marseille reading techniques. This guidebook is not that. But what the guidebook does do is give a sense of the choices made in terms of the symbolism in the cards. So we'll see when we go top down in just a second that the minors, for example, have different kinds of plants framing the pips, and these are elaborated in the guidebook in terms of why they were chosen. It gives a sense of the significance of those things. So if this was somebody's first Marseille deck, for example, I would say that they would probably want another resource as well in terms of learning Marseille, a book or YouTube videos or whatever kind of learning resource works for them. But the guidebook is good in terms of giving a sense of why the choices in terms of the depictions in the deck were made. So I do think that the guidebook, which I haven't seen talked about too much yet in terms of reviews of this deck, I do think that the guidebook is very much worth checking out for folks who back this deck. And if you're interested in just checking out the guidebook to see what it's like, you can do that, and I'll link to the website below. So now we will go to the desk and take a look at the cards. Okay, so here we are looking down at the table to take a look at Marseille Prendre Vie in more detail. I'll go over kind of the technical specifications of the deck and then get into just flipping through the cards and sharing my thoughts here and there. Now, the deck will come in a tuck box with a side flap. I've never had a tuck box like this one before, but it's basically just a standard tuck box, but it opens on one side. The cardstock is a smooth cardstock, so I don't know if I've ever had a deck, from this particular printer before, but this is, to me, very comparable to Make playing cards smooth cardstock, like a standard smooth or superior smooth, in terms of its thickness and how much kind of give that it has. I would say that it's very similar to that smooth, and the finish feels very similar to Make playing cards smooth as well. The backs are this kind of leafy design. You can tell here with these blooms here going kind of slightly to one side, these are not 100% perfectly symmetrical reversible, but as someone who does read with reversals with Marseille at times, like, you would never notice that they're not exactly precisely symmetrical. They're very, very close. So I would consider this to be a reversal friendly backing for sure. And the cards shuffle quite well, as I'll show towards the end. So we'll zoom in a little bit here to get a good look at the cards. So as mentioned previously, this is a deck that adheres to kind of a lot of the, the traditions of Marseille in terms of the way that figures are facing, where they're located in the card, what their hands are doing, things like that. But in terms of the, the kind of the clothing and the scenery is contemporary. So we have the Fool. You can see here that these are the drawn figures on a backdrop that is photography. And if you know my channel, I love a nature photography deck. So I think that this is a really cool kind of approach. And there are some places that are photographed in this deck that I have been. There are some buildings in here that I've been inside. There are some, there's a lot of landscapes that feel very familiar to me because this is, including some places that are not far from where I live. So that's a fun thing for me anyway. I like this Fool. For the Magician, we have the Conjurer, which is a traditional title. You can see here the dice and different tools of the figures conjuring on the table there. We have the Popess. You can see here, this is a kind of what I meant when I was talking about there being a couple of issues that won't be in the final deck, like this little stripe of white up there. That will obviously be corrected and gone by the final printing of the deck. And in some places these details like scepters and crowns and things, sorry about the focus there we go, are drawn in this kind of spectral sort of way, which I think is interesting. There's lots of good prints in this deck, in the attire of the figures. The Emperor here is a surveyor, which I think is an interesting choice, and think about the emperor as perhaps bringing a kind of stability with them, and a surveyor certainly speaks to that, but then there's also this kind of side of a surveyor that makes me think of, turning the land into a map, that kind of structuring influence from the emperor. The Pope. The Lover. Chariot. And so you get both kind of Arabic numeral and Roman numeral there, and then the titles for the majors at the bottom. I do like these touches of where things kind of exceed the frame. I like when a deck does that. This Justice card is based on an all-femme indigenous skate group based in Bolivia, which I learned from the guidebook. So the guidebook gives you, these hints of different influences in the deck. I really like the Converse sneakers throughout this deck as well. So of course in a Marseille deck, the strength card is 11. Note the decapitated royalty that we have here in the death card. I like that touch. Temperance. Devil. And the House of God is a traditional title as well, Maison Dieu, in a Marseille deck. I love this beautiful star card. I like that this deck has all different body shapes and sizes included and represented. It's very much a deck that looks like the world in terms of the figures in this deck. Moon. Sun. Judgment. And the World. And there's a bonus. The Happy Squirrel card. If you know the reference, then you know. Fun little extra there. We have the wands. This feels a little bit birch to me, which I enjoy as an ace because in the Ogham, birch is associated with beginnings and is the first Ogham as well. Baith. And so the minors are on sky photos, all of them, and have the pips as well as these kind of different botanical flourishes included. There's a lot of really beautiful sunsets in here. The Four of Wands, you get sunflowers, and the guidebook mentions sunflowers, having grown on the structure provided by the Four Wands, which, gives a little nod to, the numerological kind of correspondences of the Four of Wands. These like little hints for interpretation that are quite thoughtful, that run throughout the minors. The Ten of Wands has oak, which is suitable. Oak as a symbol of strength in the Ogham for Ten of Wands makes sense. I'm not suggesting that like Ogham correspondences have been incorporated into here, but as someone who reads Ogham, the Ogham trees show up in here and there, and in ways that make sense to me as well, which is interesting. This beautiful page. And there's a range of gender presentations in this deck across the majors and the courts. The titles are traditional. Page, Knight, Queen, and King. I love this king. Rainbow socks and rainbow tie. Sitting on like a really nice chair to have out on a deck, which I think is pretty fun. The ace with the world there. Onto the cups. Have some salmon there, and there's some hints inside the cups you can see of like tea leaf reading remnants there. I like the squash and corn sisters here in the 3 and the 4. And I can see, these kind of correspondences in terms of the kind of expansiveness of the 3 and squash. Some squash grow on these massively long vines, and start them out all together, and then before you know it, the patch has quadrupled in size. And corn is so upright, for the kind of structure of the 4, the stalk of corn. I think that that's fantastic. Squash again. You can see the moons there on the cups as well. And 10. This Page of Cups has like some kind of really interesting looking drink. And I would totally wear this. This coverall shorts. I would wear those in a second. Knight. The Queen, and this is the Queen of Cups is depicting an actual individual drag queen reading a story at Drag Queen Story Hour, and the first to do so. I really like that as an inclusion in the Queen of Cups. out in a park. And the king. I like that there's a bird in the background. You can see the seagull there. This looks like how I spend a lot of a lot of summer days when I'm on vacation. And you know, in places that look very much like this. So I enjoy that. The swords are next. See, the Two of Swords has lightning in the background. A two can involve a clash of sorts, you know. So that's interesting. And then in 3 you get the rainbow. My piles are getting messy. The 4. 5. I like that the central sword in the uneven swords pips looks a bit like a spade in the hilt. That's a nice nod to, you know, playing card suit correspondences as well. This is one of those places I've stood on those steps before. The coins I like because they're very textural. They feel very three-dimensional. They've got these kind of shadows on them, and I think that that's really neat. In the 4 here you get roots, which for a 4, you know, having these thick roots, you know, makes sense. These kind of decorative aspects are chosen quite deliberately in terms of their meanings. There's dandelions in the 5 of coins. There's a bit of a narrative running through the short story and the coins about a kind of neighborly conflict over flourishing dandelions amidst the well-manicured lawns that gave me a bit of a laugh. Page. I don't know that I've ever seen a mask in a deck yet. And I like that it's there. I like very much that it's there. And the queen. I like this queen's outfit too. And that amazing sky behind them. And the king. So that is the Marseille Prendre Vie. I'll just zoom out a little bit here to be able to see some cards together. So in terms of a shuffle, you know, I swear I'm not a bad shuffler. Oh, I've only got the minors. That's not good. It's really hard to try to shuffle on camera for me. So there's the majors. It shuffles well overhand. You know, and as the standard smooth does, it's definitely whoop, bridge and riffle friendly. It's easier to shuffle when you're not trying to show other people what a shuffle looks like. It's a good shuffler. And I've been shuffling and playing around with it, and it's, you know, it's holding up well and all that, so that's good. Just, oh, they're all going to be upside down. We'll take this out a little bit. So they look really good laid out in a spread, I think. Of course, I didn't do a very good job shuffling. But very colorful, very bright. And a deck that, you know, really maintains this kind of traditional Marseille structure. And so when you think about the kind of learn to read Marseille books that are out there that really focus on things like how different figures are looking at each other, you know, or where different things are pointing, because this deck maintains, you know, those traditional aspects of the depictions, this would work just fine with a book with a very traditional approach. But this deck looks like, you know, the world that we live in terms of the folks who inhabit it. So I very much appreciate it for that, and I've enjoyed getting to know this deck over the little bit of time that I have had this review copy. Thank you to Krista for sending me this and sharing the deck with me. Okay, I am going to leave it there. Again, I will put the Kickstarter in the link below. Do go check it out. It's on Kickstarter for quite a number of days still, and so you should go and see what you think, and check out the photos there and the video there, and yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. I wish everybody a great day. Bye.